Yeah, I guess
Why would you use a hand crossbow?
I didn't say that there's a good reason to use a hand crossbow. I said so you can use a hand crossbow.
Yeah.
Just, flipping around and everyone's like, what about that blade you have on your back? And it's like, don't worry about that.
That's only for my songs.
Welcome to Monsters Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bornigal.
And I'm Will Melton.
And we'll be hanging out with you for a while to talk about anything and everything D&D related. On this episode, we are taking a look at the Fighter Wizard Multiclass. So let's dive into it.
All right, so to kick things off, the Fighter Wizard Multiclass. For fighters, we are looking at a multiclassing requirement of 13 strength or 13 dexterity, making it real easy. And then for wizards, our full casters, our learned casters, unlike the Chad sorcerers, we've got a 13 in intelligence to multiclass into. And if I didn't say it, and if you're not familiar with fighters, they are the fully trained martial characters. Their subclasses really kind of run the gamut between making a copy of yourself for an Echo Knight or just being a guy who swings a sword really well and in some creative ways. So kind of all over the place. But let's go ahead and get some first thoughts. Will, how are you feeling about the Fighter Wizard Multiclass?
Yeah, not great. I think it's kind of interesting because I'm looking at the page of all the stuff you've got. And when this first came out, like a Fighter Wizard was a pretty spicy thing to do. But now that there's so much on the board, it just, I don't know. It seems like it aged poorly in my mind. But it's obviously a very versatile combination for any table.
Sure. That's kind of an interesting way to put it, though. It hasn't aged very well. And I think that's actually pretty spot on, where when you first started, this was probably one of the better ways to get a Gish character. But nowadays, I mean, every single subclass has its own Gish variant. Sorry, not every subclass. Every class seems to have its own Gish variant or opportunities. So it's like, am I really going to go for Fighter Wizard when there's all these other options? Kevin, how do you feel? What's your first thoughts?
And I would say, yes, there are times you would want to do that. It's just, I think this could still be a really solid multi-class. In either direction, mainly wizard with a dip in fighter, mainly fighter with a dip in wizard, 50-50 in each, any kind of combination you could go. It's almost hard to do this one wrong. It's just a matter of what mechanics you want. I don't think you're going to introduce a new flavor by going fighter wizard than if you just went like Eldritch Knight or like Bladesinger. Somewhat, the Bladesinger has some flavor baked in and stuff like that, or one of the more kind of magically inclined fighter subclasses. But they do all have different mechanics, so it's just a matter of like, Eldritch Knight sounds boring to me and Bladesinger sounds boring to me, so I'm just going to do Fighter Wizard.
Right.
Or like Rune Knight sounds dull. That's not what I want to play as. It's just more customization for the mechanics that you want to play that fighter caster.
Sure. Yeah, and you mentioned the flavor. That's to some extent kind of where I'm think I'm going to struggle a lot, only because the flavor is already so established. It's kind of like somebody asking if peanut butter and chocolate go together. It's like, we all know, yes, they go together. Fighter and wizards are fine. There's crossover. There are opportunities for it. And to me, it's like, I'm not getting excited about that. Not because it's bad. It's because I already know it's good. My favorite multi-classes are the times where we take two different classes, and when you mush them together, you're like, oh my god, this is a totally different thing. And I don't think that's there because we have the Bladesinger, because we have Eldritch Knight. I don't see any big shakeups in that department.
That's fair, yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, we're gonna obviously take a deep look into the specific builds and such, but I think that this one's kind of all over the place. It's
it's really hard to do poorly.
Yeah, and I think that is a good point of it.
Yeah. So some of the real obvious ones where we kind of take the stuff for granted at this point, but we new listeners, new players. If you are a wizard and take 2 levels in the fighter, you get action surge and second wind which could be really great. Also, then some armor proficiencies, medium armor proficiency. So you could get a beefier wizard with second wind. You could take like the defense fighting style to get an additional AC. And then once per long rest action surge, where you could cast 2 spells in a turn, which is fantastic. That's
Right.
hard to beat. And that's doesn't come into the bonus action. The second one has to be a cantrip bullshit or anything like that. Just 2 regular spells.
Yeah. Now, nowadays, you do run into some, we'll say, contention with the Artificer that doesn't obviously get the second wind and action surge or a fighting style. It gets very different things, but what it does get is the potential to use intelligence as your, what's a word I'm looking for? Your melee attack bonus. Whereas fighter wizard is always going to have to use strength or dex in order to do that. And you can still get your armor proficiencies. Obviously, it's a little bit different, artificer versus fighter, in terms of flavor that you're going for.
Right.
But I think,
and you'd have to go into like steel defender or armorer.
definitely. But I know it often fighter would be thrown out as one that you could chase for wizard because, oh, well, your dex is probably at 13 anyways. Where nowadays I'd probably come back with, well, if you're already a wizard, your intelligence is already good, you're probably going to get more out of an artificer in a small dip, except for that action surge. Action surge is really hard to argue with.
Mm-hmm.
But do keep in mind that if you start as a wizard and go into fighter, you only get medium armor, which you kind of said, but just to clarify that aspect.
Right.
If you want to have heavy armor, you have to start as a fighter and go into wizard. So, just some planning that may need to be involved there.
Right. An issue with going heavy, though, they all have that strength requirement of 15.
Mm-hmm.
Though if you're under it, you just lose 10 feet of speed. Which is
or you
not
need some other way
that
around
of the
it.
world. Yeah, you could be a dwarf. I think they get around that.
Some magic items here and there. Yes, hill dwarfs, I think, get around it. I don't think it's all dwarves.
Right. But then they don't get intelligence. But then with the new Tasha stuff, you could give them. And
and it all goes out the way, too.
You could figure it out.
Multiclassing is easier than ever. Especially with that Bladesinger change. That I know we've talked about a couple of times, and we actually have a series of articles coming out on our website by a guest writer, Chris Christensen, talking about all of the ways that multiclassing has been affected due to the Bladesinger's 6th level ability getting a change, which basically boils down to it can cast a cantrip and make an attack as its second part of the attack. And it doesn't need like a bonus action or anything. So that definitely lends itself to the fighter wizard but I guess that's really just kind of Bladesinger in general. But it still works well with fighter if you're going like the dueling fighting style, which is like if you have a one-handed weapon, which Bladesinger locks you down to anyways. Then there's some nice synergy there.
Right. Yeah, Bladesong could be good. You won't get use out of your medium or heavy armor, though, because you can't with Bladesong.
Oh,
it
that's
just
right.
won't activate.
It's only light armor.
Yeah, or no armor.
And do they get light armor proficiency?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, light armor and proficiency of one-handed melee weapon of your choice. Though if you're multiclass into fighter, you get all weapon proficiencies.
Yeah.
But like you're not going to be using any big two-handed weapon as a Bladesinger or anything like that.
Right. So that actually is interesting because I think that the one that you would jump to is normally that fighter Bladesinger, but there really are a lot of drawbacks from that.
Yeah. Yeah, the Bladesinger almost kind of works as its own standalone.
Yeah, you're kind of trying to double dip, and you come up short because of it. You still obviously get action surge and a fighting style, like I just said, right. As well as second wind, so it's not like the end of the world. And if you go 3 levels into fighter, then you unlock all of the subclasses that may have some good overlap as well. Yeah, I think Bladesinger is definitely... That's an interesting one. I probably wouldn't do that, just because of all of the limitations.
Yeah, it does wipe out a lot of the... Yeah, useful stuff.
So another...
You can't do as ranged or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it has to be a one-handed weapon. So unless
Yep.
you have like a hand crossbow, maybe.
Now, your proficiency with one type of one-handed melee weapon, but then the fighter gets around that. Let's see. Blade Song, provided you aren't wearing medium or heavy armor or using a shield. You can use it at end zero if you're incapacitated, if you don medium, heavy armor, or shield, or if you use two hands to make an attack with the weapon.
Sure.
Huh.
So you could officially use a hand crossbow.
Yeah, I guess
Why
you
would you
could.
use a hand crossbow?
I didn't say that there's a good reason to use a hand crossbow. I said so you can use a hand crossbow.
Yeah?
Just, flipping around and everyone's like, what about that blade you have on your back? And it's like, don't worry about that.
That's only for my songs.
Pulls it out, starts playing a riff.
Wait,
I don't know why you do that.
Yeah. Their 6th level feature, though, is worth chasing. That's the one where they get extra attack. So that would be wasted with a fighter, but then you could cast one of your cantrips in place of one of those attacks.
Yeah, it would be wasted with a 5th level fighter. As long as
Right.
you're not going all the way up to 5, then it's fine. So you were saying earlier this is hard to screw up. I think that's one time where you can at least make a bit of a mistake there, is if you try to go 50-50 on Bladesinger Fighter, you're just kind of wasting your time there.
Then again, if you go up to 11th in fighter to get your 3rd attack, but still 6th in blade singing to get this, I think that would be fine. I think
don't know
almost
if
that
that
wasted
overlaps.
5th level.
It does. It does.
It does.
Yes, I'm positive on that. Is you would be able to, because it allows you to replace one of your attacks with a cantrip. That's the specific wording and what makes it such a big change. The only time I would probably do that is if I was a high-level fighter, we'll say level 11, and I wanted to then move to wizard and to, start going into blade singing for either flavor reasons, or I'm bored of just being a fighter and want some spells. And I could see that being worthwhile to chase.
Actually, I think Will's right. I don't think...
Oh, what is the
You could
phrasing?
do both. So they're both called extra attack, and that's a pretty clear rule written somewhere in the player handbook and been clarified, where if you get 2 sources of the same ability, you just pick one. And the extra attack of fighter is beginning at 5th, you get attacked twice instead of once. The number of attack increases to 3 when you reach 11th in this class, and to 4 when you reach 20th. That's all the 5th under the 5th level block.
That's a good point.
And then, the 6th, yeah. So you would have to pick the Blade Singer extra attack, which doesn't go up, but you get the cantrip, or the fighter one. So that doesn't really work at all, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it can't just smash them all together, so...
Right. There's no real clear rule on that.
I think you're right. There is a clear rule. It's that if you get the same thing, you do one or the other. You don't do both. And
Right.
usually that's why they have different names, is that you can stack them, even if they're somewhat similar. But to me, this is the same as getting evasion twice from a monk rogue
Right.
multiclass. You only get evasion once. You can't just have double evasion or anything.
Right.
That's a good catch. Yeah, I didn't realize that it's the exact same name of extra attack. Kind of funny. I don't know if there's any other instance where you have something with the same name and a totally different set of rules with that same name, besides melee weapon attack.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
No.
I mean, other extra attacks kind of do as well, like the Barbarian's extra attack. Just, at 5th level, you can make 2 attacks instead of 1. That's the end of it, where the Fighters has an extra one. So technically, you take the Fighters when you multi-class.
Right.
But, that one's just kind of obvious of how it's supposed to work.
Right. Yeah. Well, either way, that is interesting. So then really it would not be worthwhile if we're right about this. I'm including myself on that. I said it was the other way before, but I'm on Team Kevin now. So if we're right about this, then it sounds like it would not be worthwhile to go high-level fighter and then mid-level blade song. Huh. Another kind of, we'll say, trap or something you just might not be thinking of, a general con of this multiclass, is that as a wizard, going into fighter, you're potentially missing out on some of your higher level spells. And everybody knows that spellcasters get to kind of an absurd point once you get to like level 17 and start throwing 9th level spells on the table. So you're holding back your spell slot progression. Even if you go Eldritch Knight, it's still slowing it down significantly. So you won't get your 8th and 9th level spells as early as you want, with the trade-off that you can swing a sword, and it's damage that's basically equal to your cantrips. Because realistically, the amount of damage you do on a normal melee attack is going to be outclassed by just about any cantrip.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they scale extremely well, as we see with, like, at level 11, casting Toll the Dead. That's just 3d12. That's a ridiculous amount of damage. And yes, it has a single save to it, so it's save or suck. But at the end of the day, you're not really getting anything if you're doing this just for the pure damage aspect. You have to really want to just fit that gish niche. There's a lot of noises.
Yeah, just for damage, you were right. It's not worth like leaving wizard to go to fight or anything. You want that survivability, the armor,
right,
the bigger hit die. Don't forget about that too. Wizards have a D6, fighters have a D10, so you'll have better health, more versatility, things like that. You know, you probably have to take your favorite feat, Warcaster.
Yeah,
be kind of almost a must, which is a little rough because your ability score improvements are already possibly limited, depending on when you multi-class out of something.
Yeah, I'm almost kind of struggling with that idea. You said that, well, fighters have a higher hit die, so they get a D10 where wizards get a D6. That's true, entirely true. But in this multi-class, you're going to have to focus on strength or dex in order to have a worthwhile attack bonus on your martial attacks. And that means you're probably not investing as much into con as you would want. And it's going to be harder to justify taking a feat. So really, numbers-wise, having a +1 to con is going to give you 1 HP per level that you have. So if you are giving that up in favor of the D10 hit die, realistically, that's probably not too big of a health difference for just like 2 or 3 fighter levels, compared to just having a higher constitution.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, constitution impacts your concentration saves, which you will probably be making a lot of.
Right.
That being said, don't forget fighters get a ton of ability score improvements. 4th, 6th, 8th, 12th.
That works if you're going mostly fighter
14th,
and dipping into wizard.
Yeah.
And in which case, yeah, you're totally right. I think, and that's it. We haven't really talked much about that, but a dip into wizard is a totally viable thing to do in this multi-class. And I don't think you'd regret it. And in that case, you wouldn't really notice the hit to your HP for those 2 or 3 D6s that you have to roll.
Right.
So, yeah, looking at some other combinations here, ones that I found interesting, is if you went into Arcane Archer. So normally we suggest against Arcane Archer because it has an intelligence requirement, which feels really weird. But if you're considering going into Wizard anyways, then there's actually some mechanical benefit there. You would be a ranged fighter, probably go like 5-ish into Arcane Archer, because it's just not worth going deep into Arcane Archer ever. But that save DC would actually go up, so your choices for Arcane Archer would be pretty varied. And then I was thinking if you went into like the Conjurer Wizard, that at 6th level gets the ability to teleport and as an action, or switch places with somebody as an action within 30 feet. And I think there could be some really cool synergy there as you're just trying to get out of the fray and make your ranged attacks. Now, damage-wise, cantrips are going to probably win out, just to preface that. But as a character concept, that's
sure,
what
as a character concept, it's cool. We don't steer people away from Arcane Archer because it has intelligence in it, though.
That's one of the reasons. No, well,
that's a little disingenuous.
Yeah,
I said the other reasons.
It's
you
bad.
only get 2 shots, and it doesn't scale at all. Yeah.
Yes. But it's not that a lot of the abilities are really good. It's just the fact that you only get 2 of them a day that I think really kills it. And a lot of the abilities that are better are hard to justify when you're talking about a multiclass and you only have a spell save of 13, and they're going to succeed every single time. If you have the ability to raise that spell save, then you can start looking at the entire breadth of the Arcane Archer features, and it's not going to be your go-to every time, but twice per day, you've got something cool there.
Short rest. Yeah.
I think it's a long rest.
No, I'm
double check for me. Is it short rest?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have at least some options there, and again, you get medium armor and all of the good stuff you get just from the fighter dip in general. So that would be less of like the martial gish. I actually don't know if there's a term for it if you're doing a ranger, like a ranged character and a wizard. Dumb? Do they just call it dumb? Yeah. It's like, just use your cantrips, bud.
Yeah, kind of. I think Psy Warrior could be good, because that one also relies on intelligence.
It does.
At
What's the
various
crossover
points.
there?
I know, like Psionic Strike. You can propel your weapon with Sonic Force once on each of your turns. After you hit a target within 30 feet of you with an attack, deal damage to it. To an attack and deal damage to it with a weapon, you could spend a dice, rolling it and dealing force damage to target equal to the number rolled plus your intelligence modifier.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty good once you're up to that +4 or 5 on intelligence.
Yeah, Protective Field uses intelligence by reducing the damage taken by number rolled plus your intelligence.
Sure. So just some nice crossover there.
Yeah, I think there's more. I'm not going to reread through the whole thing right now, but yeah.
That's why we prepare for this before. But there is also Telekinetic Thrust, which has a save that involves your intelligence modifier. Mm-hmm. So 8 plus proficiency plus intelligence.
Yeah, and the Psy Warrior is a solid subclass by itself, so then adding in some intelligence-based spellcasting with it by taking some wizard levels, or being a wizard and picking up some of these abilities to hold your own in melee. Definitely not a bad way to go.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. Trying to think, I don't know why, but flavor-wise, that one seems to rub me the wrong way, just because it's psionic and wizardry, which is like very much a learned craft. But I guess you're just getting into like the super smart territory of like a psionic person, where they've just got such a big brain. So then arcane magic should come easy to them. So, okay, never mind. I convinced myself.
Sure. Or you just kind of strip the psionic out of Psy Warrior, and these are just, I'm a magical warrior, and these are arcane powered strikes and movement and whatnot. Like wizards could get telekinesis and things like that.
Sure.
Booming Blade, which is similar to Psionic Strike, and flavor wise, it's just like magical energy strikes, things like that.
Yeah, really like pointless thing to bring up, but to me that almost starts to sound more like an artificer, because that's like saying that you're using magic to change around your weapons and imbue them with magic, and it's like, isn't that what an artificer is supposed to do?
Sort of. I see the artificer more makes like a permanent magical weapon, and like here is a gadget that propels itself when you hit with it, versus I am using a spell, not like a spell slot,
right,
but a spell to add force to this hit.
Okay.
It's a minor
I'll take it. No,
but yeah.
I said it was minor from the start. You're all right. All right. So another combo that is probably worth talking about is Eldritch Knight and Wizards. So mostly going into Eldritch Knight. This one I think is interesting, only because a lot of times we'll talk about Eldritch Knight being terrible to go with another full caster. But in the event that the intelligence is required anyways, I actually think a small dip into Wizard could make Eldritch Knight a lot better. and actually fills in some of the gaps that I find with Eldritch Knight, which is not enough spells and no real unique wizardry flavor. It has a lot of fighter flavor, of course, because it's an Eldritch Knight first and foremost, or it's a fighter first and foremost. But, from that 2 to 3 level dip, you could maybe go into divination, get your portent dice.
Mm-hmm.
You also get arcane recovery. So it's going to be really small, but you get at least a first level spell back on a short rest once per day.
Right. You
which for
really
an Eldritch
widen the
Knight-
spells.
Yeah, really widen your options.
Spells
Get
you could
ritual
take,
casting.
yeah. They don't have ritual casting, do they?
No, Eldritch Knight do not have ritual casting.
Okay, yeah.
So that's extremely important. And yeah, of course, the portent dice would be awesome. I'm not entirely sure how you'd flavor the divination aspect beyond your, I don't know, maybe you look into tea leaves to see the future and try to discern what the best course of action is, which is just kind of like standard divination wizard stuff. But that could be one that I think has obvious overlap and usefulness, which we always kind of say about divination wizard. I couldn't really think of any other wizard subclasses that I'm like, oh yeah, 2 to 3 level dip, that's worthwhile.
Specifically for a fighter,
For
War
Eldritch
Magic.
Knight, I'll even just say.
Well, okay, Eldritch Knight. I think War Magic could be good. Like on its own, I know we're not collectively a huge fan of War Magic. So you get Arcane Deflection at second level. As a reaction when you hit by an attack, you can grant yourself +2 bonus to your AC or +4 bonus to saving throw. So, or hit by attack or fail save. And the only limit is when to use this, you can't cast spells other than cantrips until the end of your next turn. If you are a full wizard, that can be very limiting and very detrimental. If you're mainly a fighter, it's not as big of a deal. You also get Tactical Wit, where you can add your intelligence modifier to your initiative roll.
Which is obviously great. Anything that lets you boost your initiative is fantastic. So, yeah, no, I see that. I think that's pretty good. You don't even need to have intelligence crazy high to make that worthwhile. You could kind of leave it at 16, and +3 to your initiative is great. And you're just not going to have so many spells that are relying on saving throws that you're dying to get intelligence up to 20. So you could still probably have that great strength or dexterity, whichever you want, and pretty good constitution, pretty good intelligence, and not be slacking too much. And it's definitely a class that I wouldn't recommend going any higher than second level in. Or at least not going for that 6th level one. Not
the
a
power
fan.
surge. That's
Yeah.
Eldritch Knights need abjuration and evocation spells. So an evocation wizard, I think, could be decent, because then at second level you get sculpt spells where you can, and when you cast an evocation spell, you can protect things. Creatures you could see up to 1 plus the spell's level. The chosen creature automatically succeeds on their saving throw against the spell, and they take no damage if they would normally take half. So, being also the fighter, you will probably be up in the fray, and this is the type of thing you could drop AoEs literally on yourself and protect yourself from it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally right. I like that. And that's just for evocation spells, right? Or is it all spells? Yeah, when you cast an evocation spell, 1 plus
Actually,
the
I don't
spell's
think
level.
you could do this on yourself. When you cast an evocation spell that affects other creatures that you could see, you could choose a number of them equal to 1 plus the spell's level. The chosen creature, then blah, blah, blah.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily preclude you.
Yeah, that's not super clear.
Oh, that's right. And all that it does is it automatically lets them succeed on their saving throw.
And they take no
And
damage.
They
if
take no
would
damage
take-
if they would
normally take half.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Yeah, that is really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I have always viewed that as being able to choose yourself in that, but it's a good question. That affects other creatures that you can see. You can choose a number of them. I mean, do you need a mirror?
I think it would be you.
Can you not
Be
see your
Chris.
body without a mirror?
No.
Are you like a
It's like
90s FPS game player?
90s.
Looking down,
Reverse
it's just like-
vampire.
You're giving a lot of credit to, or not enough, too much credit to video games? Yeah, because I'm pretty sure even in games that came out in like 2010, you look down and don't see your feet.
That was the revolutionary Halo 2 feature. You were like jumping, you're like, whoa, I can see my knees.
So I think you could include yourself in this though, because I think when it says other creatures, I think it's basically mean it's an AoE spell. You're not like doing like a fire bolt,
Sure.
which just hits one thing, and so obviously there's nothing to sculpt. A fireball hits other creatures.
All right, I'm at least looking it up here, and there's nothing good. Nothing good because we've got a tweet from Mike Merles, and that doesn't help. I don't trust Mike Merles. Jeremy Crawford comes in and says, no, his is kind of just advice. It's like lesser sage advice.
Gonna leave all this awkward silence.
There's a
that'd be
beauty
horrible.
to this. This is a yes or no question.
Right.
We found an official source. 3 minutes later.
All I'm seeing is from Mike Merles.
All right, I think we good.
Okay. All right. Anything I'm seeing is saying, yes, it's okay, and you can target yourself. So for now, that's what I'm going to say. If you think differently, listener, then please let us know why, and make sure to remind us how dumb we are and how we miss everything and how stupid we are. Love those comments.
Yeah. I sleep really well with that just rattling around in my brain.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah.
always helps. Sleep.
Yeah.
I don't have any good segue for this, but it is a good segue out of that, and that there is some overlap with Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, because that dude has a sword and he uses it like once or twice. And I looked into why he had a sword, because literally any topic in Lord of the Rings, nerds have argued over, even more so than Dungeons and Dragons. It's pretty intense. But the reason is because a lot of times Gandalf didn't want to be known as a wizard right away and wanted to kind of have other skills available. And especially after being trapped in Saruman's tower where he couldn't use magic. I might be misremembering that. Again, yell at me, all of that. But he basically realized, like, oh, I should be able to use a sword, because you can't always use magic to solve your problems. And I kind of liked that explanation for a D&D character, because in a lot of worlds, or even just places in a specific world, magic might be frowned upon, and the being able to use a sword and not being totally screwed when magic isn't an option is a benefit. In the same way that we've talked about, like, oh, there might be times where you don't have armor, and your monk is going to be very happy that they don't need armor or weapons or whatever. Anti-magic fields, you're going to be okay. You're going to still be able to do things and not just be totally screwed. Situations where it just wouldn't be good to reveal that you have power. A situation that generally comes up in our games is when you guys are fighting against a spellcaster and everyone goes, holy crap, there's a spellcaster, kill him now. Being able to hide that is definitely good. So I could even see from a player perspective, role-playing this. Obviously, I know, like, this doesn't always come up, but not showcasing that you are a spellcaster can put your enemy in a different mentality than if you just come in slinging spells.
Right. Yeah, I like that idea.
But yeah, can you guys stop killing the spellcasters first?
Nope.
That's actually just, I'm thinking about that. That's a great idea, is just giving us visual cues that are completely not in accordance with reality. So we're getting counterspelled by the guys in front with the battle axes while we're trying to beat up this wizard who's like this huge muscly barbarian. Is like,
Yeah.
What's going on? Why isn't this working?
Might actually give that a shot. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Good way to change things up. Look at that, a DM tip in a player episode. So, any other combinations for this one?
Yes, all of them.
All of them. Oh, you know what? Here's a good one to bring up. I wouldn't do Echo Knight. I don't think it's worthwhile because one of the main benefits of Echo Knight is the ability to attack from a different location, and I just don't think that's as important when you can't cast a spell through them. Because a lot of times this is going to fall into the Skag Trip range where you're going to Booming Blade, you're going to Green Flame Blade, much to my chagrin. I know, I get it, I hate Booming Blade. But if you're not doing that and you can't do that through the Echo Knight, I don't really see the benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, you cannot Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade from the Echo Knight.
Right.
Because it's when you take the attack action on your turn, and you're not taking the attack action, you're casting the cantrip. And as
Right.
part of that, you make an attack.
Now, how does that cross over with the Blade Singer's 6th level ability? Where they get
could
the
do both.
2. So could you cast a cantrip yourself and then on your second attack have your Echo Knight make a melee weapon attack?
Oh, if you... I don't see why not. You
Yeah.
can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. Moreover, you could cast one of your cantrips in place of one of those attacks. So you take the attack action, do your Blade Singing cantrip, and then the second attack. Yeah. Because the Echo Knight, you can split it up.
Right. So you're
Yeah,
taking
you
the
make
attack
this,
action.
You make this choice for each attack. Yeah.
Little confusing, but yeah, I think that checks out. Your second attack that isn't the cantrip, whatever that may be, should be able to originate from your Echo. So that might be an alright path to go. Doing a 3-level dip just to get the Echo.
Sure, yeah. Then you get a bit of a teleportation. You get opportunity attack through the Echo Knight.
Always good. And those additional attacks using your Constitution modifier. It's something.
Yeah.
I think the big thing's probably the teleportation.
The Unleash Incarnation, that.
Yeah.
Whenever you take the attack action, you can make additional melee attack from the Echo's position.
Right.
Yeah, so that would still work with the Blade Singer thing. Take the attack action, do a melee attack, do a cantrip, and then a third attack. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just only up to your Constitution modifier per long
okay.
rest. So that part always sucks. But
Yeah.
I think alone, a 3-level dip for everything we've talked about with Fighter and the ability to teleport back and forth and, kind of get out of bad situations, that's kind of worthwhile. I could see that being a good dip with Blade Singer. I think any other wizard I wouldn't bother.
Right. Rune Knight's always a good 3-level dip. That's like always up permanently on the list now.
Yeah.
You get all those rune options right away at 3rd level.
And that's very fitting with wizard flavor-wise.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no issues there at all.
That'd probably be a good one to do just like a small dip into wizard. Because I'll keep standing by just the ritual casting and cantrips that you get from a small dip into wizard can really make it worthwhile. Especially if you're not expecting to get to level 20. Really, in general, I mean, do you need the 4 attacks? It's kind of cool, but do you need them?
No,
Compared to
not.
all of the time that ritual casting might come up throughout a campaign, I would take
Right.
that over my extra attack.
Right.
But otherwise, probably wouldn't bother with Samurai ever, because, it's just not that great.
Mm-hmm.
Cavalier, I don't really see any actual crossover. It's not bad, but Cavalier is definitely one where you want to have a lot of tankiness. So I guess getting shield could make that worthwhile if you're just doing a small dip, because you kind of force things to attack you, throw up the shield, make it harder to hit you.
Sure. I mean, that's pretty limited, though. You're probably lowering another stat to get intelligence to 13. It's a multi-class, where, the points you put in intelligence could just be dumped into con.
Right.
And if you go beyond that, and then you get, 1 or 2 spell slots.
Yeah.
For the little dip. If you keep going beyond it, then you're going to start having concentration spells and...
No, I'm literally doing this
like
dip
that,
just for the shield spell. just for that. 2 levels, you get Arcane Recovery, you get your wizard spells, not spell stuff, subclass stuff, which is usually worthless besides divination at 2nd level.
Yeah. Well, no, then again, war magic.
And war magic. Okay.
That would be good with Cavalier because it does make you beefier and tankier.
There we go. Hey, it wasn't a horrible idea. But yeah, I mean, I know we've kind of brought this up, but the only other thing is just how often you'd expect to use skag trips over making 2 attacks as a fighter. That one might be like something you have to fight with, because a lot of times, like with Rogue, it's like obvious you're going to use Booming Blade. Even if you have 2 attacks, getting that 1 attack with sneak attack is generally better, but besides the point, there's still something to argue about. With a fighter wizard, I don't know. I mean, Booming Blade versus your attacks, kind of similar in damage.
Mm-hmm. It depends.
Yeah, if you're trying to like stop somebody from moving and do that whole cheesiness that I despise so much, then yeah, it's probably worthwhile to do the Booming Blade. But having 2 opportunities to hit, 2 opportunities to crit, usually the extra attack wins out because of that.
Yeah, for sure. I know, like on my character, I'm a Rogue Bard and Valor Bard, so I have extra attack, and I also have Booming Blade, and more often than not, I'm doing extra attack because it just seems more worthwhile. They both hit. It's 2d8 plus 10 damage, basically. Where Booming Blade hits, it's just 1 chance, and then it's 2d8 plus 5, and then another d8 if they happen to move. So then comes 3d8 plus 5, and I think 2d8 plus 10 is more reliable, and it's over 2 attacks. If 1 misses, I can still hit again.
Right, exactly. Compared to those disappointing
Also, I'm
turns.
a rogue, and I want to get one of the sneak attacks off, so more chances to, nothing worse is more worse.
Worserer, Kevin.
Yeah,
worserer. Nothing is worserer. There we go. Nothing is worserer sauce.
That's my favorite sorcerer subclass, is the worserer sauce. Anyways, what were you saying, Kevin? Nothing's worserer than what?
Missing as a rogue.
Missing as a rogue. Yeah. And when you do it using Booming Blade, it really does put a big smile on my face every time. But yeah, I mean, I think what we said at the beginning, I don't think any major opinions have been changed from this. It's a good class. It's a good multi-class, kind of hard to screw up, but a couple of points here and there. If there's any combinations that we didn't talk about that you think are awesome and worth discussing, please do it. Make sure to find us on our subreddit. That's a lot easier to discuss these things than Twitter, but hey, we're on there too, at monsters_multi, or our subreddit, our Monsters and Multiclass. And I should probably say something about one of our affiliates. I don't know, Kevin, choose one. Who's it going to be?
Describe.
Describe is the scribe to help you with all of your description needs. So they are a site that provides professionally crafted descriptions for different areas and events. Can be extremely useful if you are a DM. Allows you to just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? See, every time I bring this up, it's like, if only I had Describe write these promos for me. But helps a lot with just descriptions, and use it all the time for that. Lets me get real flowery. I don't know if my players like it. I'm going to assume yes. Do you guys like descriptions?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I just tune them out, man.
So I've been getting really heavy into descriptions, and I wasn't sure if that was enjoyed. Good. Thanks, Describe. You can get 10% off using the code MM10, 10% off your subscription to Describe, and yeah, you don't have to pay full price, which is always great. So for that one, code is MM10. And last but not least, just want to thank all of our patrons: Jeff W., Joe P., Vincent M., Isaac M., Sentinel D20, Star Shinobi, Adam A., and Home Bakery. Thank you so much for your continued support and helping us make this show better as we can, and that's great. We love you guys. If you want to support the show, go to monstersmulticlass.com/support. And if you've stuck around this long and still not liked the video or subscribed wherever you get your podcast or YouTube, make sure to do that. Leave a comment, leave a review, and just interact with us because it makes us happy. And that's it.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for watching.